Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of Mr. J's Geek Corner. Place we talk about anything and everything that is geek, whether it be TV, comics, movies, video game. And anybody who's watched the show knows that I've had a major disagreement with the way that DC has been portraying Batman the last few years, and that almost like he's unstoppable. And I know there are fans out there always like, oh, he could do anything because he's Batman and all that stuff. And it's like DC has taken on this philosophy too, to the point where it looks like Batman is all-seeing, all-knowing, looks down on everybody like they're stupid and stuff like that. And taking on the whole because he's Batman movement that a lot of the fans out there have started, and to the point where it looks like they're trying to vaunt Batman as a god and kick Superman into the dirt and push all the other DC universe into the back. Well, I can definitely say that I wasn't exaggerating anymore. The fact that I've always said it looks like they're trying to vaunt Batman as a god over at DC. Well, now they have literally made him into a god by definition. I mean, I found out just recently in issue 42 of Justice League, the little mini relaunch post. And the little post mini relaunch post convergence that Batman that they have literally made Batman into a god, or by definition a new god, and they literally turned Batman into one of the new gods. And how this happens, from what I read in the reviews of this issue, I think they're fixing to start the whole Dark Side war thing, where Dark Side has basically gone to war with the Anti-Monitor, one of my number one favorite supervillains. They're going to war. They're going to war with one another, and that excuse me, feel a little drowsy there. They're going to war with each other, and the new god, and of course, all the new gods play a part in this in one way or the other. And somehow in the course of this issue they have wrestled somehow gotten Metron to get out of his Mobius chair, and guess who hops into it? None other than Batman. He hops into the Mobius chair and starts getting all this knowledge mostly the knowledge of the universe poured into his head, into his very being. And everybody, and of course the thing to ask, and of course the review to ask, you think he would ask, how could he, you think he would ask, with all this power, you think he would ask, the questions he would ask would be, how can I wipe out crime in Gotham City? How can I make things better? What does he ask? He asks who killed his parents and who the Joker really was. You talk about self-serving. I mean, it's one thing. I mean, it's like, does that even really matter anymore? I mean, after a while, it didn't really matter. In Batman, I know they kept looking. I know before Infinite Crisis, he was still looking for who murdered his parents, without any success at all. But after a while, it didn't really matter, and that he was doing a difference in Gotham, if not the world, by what he was doing. But of all the questions he could have asked, how can you wipe out crime? How can you make the world a better place? Instead, all he asks is who murdered Mom and Daddy, and who the Joker, who the big bad man with the smile, the Joker, is. And he essentially finds out Joe Chill once again killed his parents, and he even finds out who the Joker is. Who is it? They didn't reveal that. I saw on some websites they made such a big deal about that he was going to find out the true identity of the Joker. He did, but the audience didn't. But that's beside the point. And then later on, and then towards this has happened. I'm basically spoiling it for you. So if you haven't read it yet and you don't want to hear it, don't listen to it. But if you're like me and don't really care and don't read New 52 anyway, brace yourself. Here it comes. It ends with Diana saying, "Batman, are you okay?" Or something like that. And he basically says, the most arrogant thing I've ever heard Batman say. He says, this is his exact words, "Don't worry, Diana, I'm a god now." How arrogant is that? He sits there with the most arrogant look on his face, like that whole meme that you see, like the "I don't do such and such, but when I do" guy. That meme, you know what I'm talking about? That guy. That's the exact pose he's sitting there. I've actually got the picture. Here it is. This is what he looks like. That's what he look. That's the last page, and you can see the quote there. Let me zoom in a little bit if you can't see that. If the screen's blurring up here. That's Batman saying that. And here's a different one. I kind of zoomed in a little bit than I got. Does he not look like the guy that says, I don't such and such, but when I do"? That's exactly what he looks like. Cocky, arrogant, full of himself. And I'm gonna say, there are folks to say I'm going to ask the question, that's supposed to be relatable? That is not relatable. I'm going to say, in terms of superheroes, that is not relatable. And and as a lot of y'all know, I did an episode called "Why Superman is More Relatable Than Batman." And I'm going to add to the list, this is another way that Superman is more relatable than Batman. Because in the past, Superman has been basically bestowed with godlike powers. Many times has been bestowed with godlike powers, but it's never, ever gone to his head. I mean, even with his own powers, he doesn't let it go to his head. I mean, there's been alternate realities where he's basically become a dictator, but still, in terms of like supposed to be the mainstream Batman, the mainstream Superman of the universe, he's rejected every bit of godlike powers. Case in point, there was an old story from back in the 80s that from a Superman annual called the Superman Sword, and it was basically the energy of a planet that just exploded or started exploding. And what happened is it somehow created this Superman sword. And it came to Superman and he got it. And he gave him power beyond imagination. And I've never read the book. I wish I could get a hold of a copy. But for what I've seen, it's a great story. It's a great way to show you that Superman does not want that kind of power at his fingertips. He already has plenty. He don't want any more. The fact that the power, he could feel such power beyond strength, beyond imagination. He says in the course of the quote where the sword is just energizing with this power and essentially making him a god. He says the power, the strength, and he essentially says, "I don't want it." That's his exact quote. This is the power, the strength. He said, "I don't want it. Take it away." He does not want that kind of power. He rejects godhood. From what I've seen of other stories, he has rejected godhood. That's just one example. Another example, and there was that Fantastic Four crossover where he gave it up with the power of Cosmic. In the end, he rejected that too. He was made into a Herald of Galactus, but he gave up that power too. In Superman 1 million, or the DC 1 million story, you find out that he wound up the gold Superman Prime, and he ended up with power beyond imagination. But did he vaunt himself above everybody else? No, he did not. All he did was bestow powers beyond imagination to his descendants, his bloodline, to make sure that the earth was protected. He didn't demand worship. He didn't act like the power went to his head. I mean, and I can't think of any other example right now. I know I thought of a few, but they've gone out of my head. But there are so many other examples of him having this kind of power at his fingertips, and he basically rejected it because he doesn't want that. And also, here's another good example. Even before Death of Superman and during Death of Superman, he didn't want. There is this cult that basically worships Superman as a new Messiah. They worship Superman like he's the second coming. And he doesn't want that. He doesn't want people worshiping him. He doesn't want people to think he's a god because he knows he's not. He knows he is not a god. He doesn't claim to be, and he doesn't want to be. I know during the reign of the Superman, you had the Eradicator posing as Superman, and he was basically feeding the masses. He's basically fueling the fire. But the thing was, he wasn't Superman. He was just posing as him. He was basically rallying these people. And he didn't, and like I said, that's not who Superman is. Superman isn't a god. I mean, it may look like he is. I mean, he may have power beyond those of powers and abilities beyond those of mortal men, but he doesn't vaunt himself above humanity. He wants to be like humanity. He wants to help humanity. And in a way, Batman does too, but in a very, very, very different way. I mean, Superman tries to be everybody's friend. He tries to, or at least he's supposed to be. I'm not talking about the idiot version here. I don't know what he stands for. But as I said, he wants to try to be everybody's friend. He wants to protect. He wants people to trust him. He built a trust up. Hardly anybody trusts the Batman. Hardly anybody trusts Batman because Batman don't trust anybody else. And another good example in the New 52, I dare bring the New 52 into this. And the more recent thing, in another one of the Justice League books, you might as well say the Didioverse now because New 52 no longer exists. But, at least the brand name, the universe is still around. But that's beside the point. But in a recent issue, I think it's JLA or something, the Kryptonian god Ra comes to Earth. Their Kryptonian sun god Ra comes to Earth, and who's one of his number one prophets? Superman. Superman essentially meets his God and tries to spread his message throughout the world. Batman, however, thinks he's a phony. And I don't know how that story's going to go, so I'm not going to make any conclusions, but still, he doesn't trust anything. He doesn't trust anybody. And I'm kind of getting off track here, but still, in this book, Batman becomes the very thing that he mistrusts Ra as being, a supposed god. But what? As I said about Superman, anytime he was presented with godlike power, he rejected it. And when he did accept that kind of power, he didn't lord it over everybody. He used it for good. He used it to help his descendants and of his bloodline to become better heroes. And I like that personally. But Batman, the first thing he does with godlike power, instead of trying to make the world a better place, is answer his own personal questions. He's presented with all the knowledge in the universe, and all he wants to know is who killed mommy and daddy and who's the big bad Joker. And the next thing out of his mouth is some of the most arrogant words ever uttered by him. And I actually made a meme and put it online just yesterday. And those of y'all who follow me on Google Plus have already seen this meme. But if you haven't, it said basically I wrote there. It said, "This, my friends, is how a relatable character is made unrelatable." Batman is supposed to be relatable. It's like, what if the average guy goes out there and tries to be a hero? I mean, I've said relatable. I mean, I ain't completely. And when I said before, I said Batman is Superman is more relatable. Batman, I still stick by that. But to an extent, Batman is relatable. But by doing this, putting him in his chair and giving him this power, and hence making him and have it go to his head, and he'd be this arrogant and have such arrogance, and just the look in his eyes and the way he carries himself just by sitting down in that chair, and the words that he utters, they've just completely made him unrelatable whatsoever. I don't know what's going to happen in the course of this story, but for right now, this looks like it's what is going to happen to Batman. I'm going to say, he's not a god, he's a monster. He's an arrogant so-and-so that could almost demand worship, to tell you the truth. And the last time he had power like this, it was in a story called Super Bat, in which he literally magically wound up with Superman's powers. And he basically went without sleep, and it basically drove him mad. To the point where anybody got in his way, he hurt them. Superman, the power never went to his head, but the power went to Batman's head. It basically drove him insane. To the point where he was more paranoid than Batman's ever been portrayed to be before. The fact he doesn't sleep, goes flying around the world, anytime it's night, pops up and stops crime. He even wiped out crime in Gotham City. And he had gone so far gone, because of these abilities, he was so far gone, he nearby killed Catwoman. A simple cat burglar. Who's nothing more, like I said, nothing more than a sensual, a cat burglar. Just a normal human being. He nearly killed her. And then when Nightwing stepped in to stop him, he nearly killed him too. And it come right down to the end that Superman had to try to stop him and get his powers back. Because he even beat Bane. But it just kept going in the story that he eventually the power drove him insane. That kind of power drove Batman totally insane. Almost completely and totally insane. He was right there on the verge. And as I said, and the fact that in this book, he has now gotten so arrogant with this kind of power that he says that to Wonder Woman. They have just completely made him unrelatable now. And it's just sad. The fact that all this time, that I've been saying this, I've been coming on here saying that it's like they try to portray Batman as a god, as an unstoppable god who could beat anybody, by walking in the room and saying, because I'm Batman. The fact that they portray him as that, now they have literally made him that. Literally. To the point that even they said at the bottom, I don't know if you saw at the bottom of that picture, that the next issue was going to be titled Bat God. And that's a phrase I had been coining a lot lately. Mocking. Not exactly in a flattering manner. Which is basically all this mess they've done in terms of Batman led me to create the hashtag Batman, not Bat God. And now they've made him essentially a god. And I'm just saying, it makes things worse. And I know I'm sitting here and wearing a Batman t-shirt, but it says I'm going to say it, I've grown weary of the modern day Batman. Whether it be Arkham, or the Chris Nolan movies, or the comics, I've grown tired of modern day Batman. Because all you see is somebody, a normal human being in a bat suit with some fancy gadgets and a cool car, vaunted as some kind of a deity. And personally, I'm sick of it. I know I have more of a Superman bias, but I don't think Superman's a god either. And that's what makes him so relatable. He knows he isn't, and I don't think he is either. And I'm gonna say it, and I've said this many times to my wife, and I've said it many times to a lot of folks. I'm tired of modern day Batman. I say that the only Batman versions of Batman I can tolerate is Batman 60s, the Adam West Batman, the Keaton Batman, and Batman animated series. That's about the only versions I like now. Because you don't feel like something is vaunting him like he's some kind of a deity on a pedestal or an idol or something. You feel like he's a superhero, not somebody trying to vaunt him like he's a god, while kicking all of his kicking his other fellow compatriot in the dirt and pushing everybody else to the background. Like don't mind them, they don't exist. Just pay attention to the guy in the bat suit. And meanwhile, they got his Kryptonian compatriot over here kicked in the dirt with his nose pressed against the ground, with a boot to the back of his head, pressing his face on the ground into the dirt. I don't like that. And that's why I'm sticking to anything. That's why I'm sticking to any version of Batman before the year 2000, basically. Because you don't feel that with that Batman. With the versions of Batman I just said, you don't feel that. That version actually feels more. Those versions actually feel relatable, whether they're campy or otherwise, whether they're campy or not. I more relate to those. I have more of a bond with those versions of Batman than I do Arkham or The Dark Knight or anything like that, or any of the modern comics. Because, like I said, you just feel that they're trying to vaunt, in that generation, they're trying to vaunt Batman like he's a god. And the fact that they have now made him one just makes him even more unrelatable and intolerable. But what do y'all think? Do y'all agree? Am I out of line? Do y'all have a different opinion in this? Let me know. As always, drop me a comment in the comment box below. I would love to hear what y'all have to say on this subject. And I guess that's all for this week's edition of Mr. J's Geek Corner. And as always, if you have any comments about the show, drop me a comment in the comment box. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. Like, subscribe, share with all your friends, tell all your friends. I don't think I mentioned this before, but this is episode 90 of Mr. J's Geek Corner, which means in 10 more episodes I will have made my 100th Mr. J's Geek Corner. And I'm going to just say right now, it's a work in progress, but I'm working on something big for episode 100. It's something that I've heard, I would just say I've heard a few requests for, and it's something I want to do for a while, but I ain't going to promise anything. But it's definitely something I'm going to be working on, so definitely stay tuned for episode 100. It's going to be great. It's going to be pretty huge. For me, that is. It's going to be pretty huge from my point of view anyway, but I say it's something that a lot of folks have wanted to see. It's something I want to do for a while, so definitely stay tuned. I hope I'll be able to do it. It's going to be good, so as I was saying, if y'all have any ideas for something y'all want to see on the show, drop your ideas in the comment box. I'm always up for fresh new ideas and subjects to talk about and discuss and analyze on this show. So definitely drop in the comment box. I would love to hear from. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your ideas, and you never know what maybe made it into episode Mr. J's Geek, future episode of Mr. J's Geek Corner. So definitely drop your ideas in the comment box. I would love to hear from you and love to hear your ideas. And I'll see y'all next time.